Good afternoon, everyone. Diane Seider here to talk about GP year-end close and the changes that are happening to the 1099s this year. All right, so at the end of every year, November timeframe, late November, GP comes out with a year-end service pack. These year-end service packs are cumulative, so all prior updates are included. All prior service packs, hot fixes, are included in the most recent release. And this year for folks, in order to print 1099s as well as payroll, you will need this year-end service pack. So I know marketing has sent out emails trying to get people signed up so that we have you on the list. Hopefully, if you missed that, reach out to one of us and we can make sure you guys are on the list to get a service pack. So here's the year-end service pack overview. GP 2015, obviously mainstream support ended for that on April of this year, 2020. There is extended support available through Microsoft through April of 2025, but mainstream support has ended. What that means is if you're on payroll, for example, there is no tax updates for you, for the next payroll year end. There are also no more service packs. So if you're on 2015 and you need to print 1099s, we're going to have to upgrade you to at least 2016. There are no more service packs available for 2015. Like I said, throughout the year, we've been reaching out to folks on 2015. If you did not get an email or, a message from marketing, please reach out to us so we can help get you scheduled. So GP 2016. For GP 2016 on to 2018 and all the newer releases, there is a year-end service pack. But note that if you are on GP 2016, mainstream service will end July of next year, 2021. So you will need to upgrade sometime next year, especially if you're doing payroll in GP. So just keep that in mind. All right, so the new 1099 NEC, it changes the vendor window. You notice that we now have a tax type of non-employee compensation and then a 1099 box for it as well. The 1099 form itself is changing, and so the year-end service pack includes the change in GP to accommodate that. There is a way to update all the vendors at once. We have documentation on that. So as part of the year-end service pack, we can, certainly talk about how we make sure everybody's updated, all the vendors are updated and ready to go. So like I said in the earlier slide, the 1099 update will be rolled back to GP 2016. So it's in the service pack, the year-end service pack for 2016 on. All right, so now let's talk about year-end closing. For those of you that have been around in GP for many years, I do this presentation every year. I try to change it up a little bit. So this year I want to start out with talking about year-end close planning. And so it's a good idea to plan for the year-end close, select an optimal time to do the year-end closing. You don't want to do it when the auditors are in. You want to be able to have adequate time before the next critical task is due so that you can, complete the year end in a timely manner, but you're not rushing through it because you've got other fires to put out. So try to plan ahead and pick an optimal time. It's also a good idea to develop a work plan, just a step-by-step work plan. List out the tasks. Everybody's year-end close is similar, but each company probably has, a few things that are different. Some folks do a year-end, stock count. Other folks don't do that. So you want to kind of put together a plan, not just around GP, but all the systems and audit requirements and all of that. Just kind of have a checklist to work off of. That way you make sure you're not missing anything, nothing's left out. Always good to have a contingency plan. When you're going through the year-end close process, Microsoft recommends doing database backups at multiple steps through the process, and that's just so that you can go and recover if something happened during the year-end close. You can easily restore back to prior to that close happening. So always good to have a contingency plan and lots of backups for the GP part. So steps to complete before year end. First thing you want to do is set up the new fiscal year. So you want to set up 2021 before you go ahead and close 2020. So you go to the administration page or to Microsoft Dynamics GP button, Tools, Set Up Company, Fiscal Periods. You type in the year 2021 and then you hit the calculate button and it should build out the periods for you. Sometimes if you're on a 554 calendar, you're going to have to manually update the start dates of the periods because GP will want to start on the first day of the month. So you'll have to manually update those. But other than that, you should be okay. Then you just click OK and the year is set up and ready to go for you. Always a good idea, again, going back to the contingency plan, make sure you have a backup of all, a database backup. And, it's also a good idea to have a copy of any customized forms or reports. Just, better safe than sorry. So one of the other optional steps to perform is to run check links on all tables. This ensures that data is, that there's integrity with your data, there's no missing links, all the tables are updated properly. Some folks, and this is where the planning ahead comes into play, some folks that have been on GP for many, many years, check links could take a couple of days. So some folks will start the process on a Friday evening and let it run over a weekend. Other times, some people break it up by module because you can do it by module. You can do the sales module one weekend, the purchasing module the next, but it's a good habit to get into at least once a year to run check links. If you're not sure about check links, I know there are some caveats. Check links isn't recommended for folks that have analytical accounting turned on. There's a separate AA check links for that. So there are some caveats to check links. So if you've never run it before or your partner has never run it before, if you're new to us, give us a call and let's talk about it before it's run. So next step before you complete the year-end process is to run the Reconcile utility on the following modules, and they're listed in order. So it's purchase order processing, sales order processing, then inventory. And the Reconcile is found on each area page, the purchasing or sales or inventory area page under utilities. So finally, before you complete your end, post all batches, in each module, post everything that you can. Make sure, verify that maintain history is turned on. So here is a screenshot of the general ledger setup window. Notice the maintain history section highlighted in yellow. Make sure those boxes are checked. By default, they should be, but just good habit to get into. It takes, less than a minute to check. So go ahead and give it a look. Make sure, it didn't get unchecked accidentally somehow. We did have a client once who somehow the boxes got turned off and they did a year-end close and actually lost some history. But they had a backup, so it was easy to fix. Also a good habit to get into, verify your GL account posting types. Make sure that balance sheet accounts are set up as balance sheet and profit and loss accounts are set up as profit and loss. Each year we have less and less that we have to fix, but there are still, some folks that miss an account and we have to go in after the fact and correct it. It is correctable, but it's much easier to verify on the front end versus fixing on the back end. So, if a P&L account is accidentally set to a balance sheet, obviously that balance will roll forward into 2021 and instead of closing to retained earnings. So that's why it's important to check. A couple of other things to check. Just make sure, again, on the general ledger setup window, that the correct retained earnings account is set up as the default. And for those of you that are closing to divisional retained earnings accounts, go ahead and check and make sure that for every difference in your chart of accounts that there is a related retained earnings account. So here I have segment, my first segment is, let's say, my departments. I need a retained earnings account for every department that I have in GP. Otherwise, you'll go through the year-end close process and you'll get a message saying you're missing a retained earnings account. So, all right, so the summary of the year-end closing procedures. Microsoft recommends that you close the modules in this specific order. You close inventory first, then receivables, then payables, then fixed assets. If you're using analytical accounting, review the account settings, and then finally close the general ledger. Payroll has a separate and unrelated year-end close process based on the pay periods, so we'll talk about that separately here in a minute. You notice certain modules are missing from this list, and that is because there's no year-end associated with them. So sales order processing, purchase order processing, bank reconciliation, HR, project accounting, any of the field service modules, service call, contract, or preventative maintenance, there is no specific year-end close routine for those modules. So it is inventory. Let's go back a slide. So it's inventory, receivables, payables, fixed assets, general ledger, and payroll. So there are a couple of optional year-end tasks. In inventory, you have the ability to remove discontinued items, sold receipts, or sold lot attributes for items that have a zero balance. You also have the ability to update the standard cost on items with LIFO or FIFO periodic valuation methods. And finally, you have the option to remove, if you want to remove discontinued items, consider this in advance because you need to be sure to mark the items as discontinued before you can remove them. So again, that's part of the pre-planning. If you want to discuss some of these options in greater detail, give us a call and we can kind of walk through, and discuss pros and cons or any potential issues. Optional year-end tasks for general ledger. You can remove any unused segments and you can maintain or remove inactive accounts. Again, there's some pre-planning that needs to happen. So, if you want to consider one of these options, give us a call and we can, again, talk about the pros and cons and what needs to happen ahead of time in order to do these. So payroll, like I said a little bit earlier, payroll is on its own time frame, so it doesn't affect any of the other module closes. So there is a year end. So first off, you need to make sure that the latest, this slide is not up to date, 2020 payroll tax update has been installed so that obviously 2020 taxes are calculating right. You want to complete all pay runs for the current year, complete all month-end period and quarter-end processes for the current year, make a backup, then we'll install the year-end update. It doesn't necessarily have to go in that order, and Mike can talk a little bit about that. I know he's, I think, up next. But the big thing is we need to do the year-end update before year-end. So the year-end service pack needs to be installed before year-end, and then then you verify your W-2 information and print your statements and walk through all of that. Once you're ready to process payroll in the new year in 2021, we need to install the payroll tax update for 2021. So that is after 2020 payroll has been completed, then we install the 2021 payroll tax update. And a lot of folks do that themselves. We can certainly help if you need help. And again, we can help with any year-end process that you want help with. If you want help, printing W-2s and some of the year-end wage files, we can help with that. If you want help closing all of the modules, we can help, schedule and run through that process with you or for you, up to you. So after you've closed the modules, it's good habit to go into the fiscal periods window and close all of the modules for all of the periods. If the auditors come back with adjusting entries, say March, April, February, whenever, you can always come back in and uncheck or open a period, do your journal entries, and close the period again. But it's a good habit to get into so people don't accidentally post to the closed year. So like I said earlier, Microsoft likes a lot of backups during the year-end close process. They recommend after you've completed each of the module closes to do one final post-closing year-end backup. it's easier to restore at a point in time if you have backups throughout the process. So just something to keep in mind.